On our anniversary, my girlfriend Elizabeth posted on social media, "Time flies. It's already the 9th year." I liked the post, but it was deleted almost immediately. Later, by accident, I saw her phone. A friend had commented on that post, "It's been 9 years and you still haven't forgotten him." I glanced at his photo. It looked about 90% like me. As it turned out, the 9th year she was commemorating was never about me. It was always her unforgettable first love, Marco. After that, I silently walked away. It wasn't until I was about to get married that I learned my girlfriend had been frantically searching for me for 10 years. It was the 9th anniversary of my relationship with my girlfriend. As usual, I made a restaurant reservation, prepared roses, and bought her an expensive necklace. Halfway through the meal, she hurried out to take a call. When she came back, she said, "There's an urgent matter at the office. I have to go." And she left. I was left alone with steaks, pasta, and desserts. Not wanting it to go to waste, I called a friend to join me. Seeing my unhappy expression, Alex consoled me. "Don't be upset. Elizabeth was just promoted to regional general manager, so it's normal for her to be busy. Look, even though she's swamped, she still found time to post about your 9th anniversary on social media." I checked my phone, and sure enough, Elizabeth had updated her status 3 minutes ago. Time flies. It's already the 9th year. I felt a surge of warmth and liked the post. Just as I was about to comment, "Where did you find this photo?" "I don't even remember taking it," the post disappeared. At that moment, Alex asked, puzzled, "When did you take this photo? It looks like you, but not quite." "I can't put my finger on it." He handed me his phone, showing a screenshot of Elizabeth's post. At first glance, it did look like me. But upon closer inspection, the man in the photo had a softness and fragility in his eyes. My own eyes, on the other hand, were often described as resolute and sharp, a quality honed through a decade of professional battles. That unwavering determination had made me invincible in my career. I zoomed in on the photo and noticed a rose tattoo on the man's right index finger. I glanced at my own hand, which was bare. A chill ran down my spine. I asked Alex to send me the screenshot. After saving it, I dialed Elizabeth's number. It rang for a long time, but no one answered. I called again with the same result. Seeing my tense expression, Alex helped me up and said, "I'll take you home." We drove back to my place, rain pouring down outside. Amid the sound of the storm, I stared at the screenshot on my phone, lost in thought. He wasn't me, but he looked so much like me. Or perhaps I looked so much like him. Just as I was about to call Elizabeth again, the door opened. Elizabeth stumbled in, drenched from head to toe. "You're back," I asked lightly, sitting on the sofa in the darkened room. My fingers gripping the phone were starting to ache from the pressure. I tried to keep my tone neutral as I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. At the very least, until I knew the truth, I didn't want to come off as unreasonable. But Elizabeth just mumbled a "yeah" and hurried into the bathroom. The sound of running water echoed from inside. For the first time, I picked up Elizabeth's phone. I opened WeChat. The post was still there. It had only been hidden from me. Below that post were comments from Elizabeth's friends. "OMG, Marco's back? This post is hidden from your boyfriend, right? No way, Elizabeth. It's been 9 years and you still haven't forgotten him." Underneath that comment, Elizabeth had simply replied with one word, "Yes." That single word dropped like a 1,000-pound weight, smashing my heart to pieces. I suddenly felt so foolish, so incredibly foolish. I've lived 30 years, always honest and straightforward, yet I was being used as a stand-in by the person I shared my bed with. Could I be any more stupid? Were there no signs telling me the truth? Every time I habitually patted her head, Elizabeth would frown, and I never paid attention to it. She'd say it would mess up her hairstyle and it wouldn't look good anymore. When I always preferred wearing black and gray, she often suggested that I try white. "David, you're already so cold in nature. Wearing black and gray only makes you seem colder. White would make you look more youthful." I'm not someone who goes out of my way to please others, but when it came to my partner, I always made an effort to accommodate. So gradually, my wardrobe filled with more and more white clothes. I didn't think there was anything wrong with making my partner happy. After all, when I liked women who wore dresses, Elizabeth would change into a dress after work, sit on my lap, and say, "David, come sit." That kind of seductive restraint often kept me in bed until the morning. But now that I think about it, those moments only happened when I was dressed in white. I used to think it was just Elizabeth's aesthetic preference. Now I know, it was her 9-year obsession with a man. That man's name was Marco. Looking at the man in the photo with the same hairstyle and wearing the same white shirt as me, I never imagined that one day I'd find myself living the plot of a childhood sweetheart stand-in story. My heart ached. As I pressed my hand against my chest, there was a click as the door opened, and Elizabeth came out. "Who is he?" I asked, pointing to the screenshot on my phone. Elizabeth froze for a moment. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she said, "Let me get dressed first." I sat calmly on the sofa, waiting for her to change. Not into pajamas, but into a new dress. She leaned down, placing her hands on my shoulders. "David, trust me. He's just a friend. He just returned to the country and doesn't have many friends, so he asked me to pick him up." Elizabeth didn't even wait for my response before standing up, adjusting her clothes, and grabbing the umbrella from the side table. Then she walked straight toward the door. "Elizabeth, I hope you don't regret this." I gritted my teeth and said the words. But Elizabeth only paused for a moment before opening the door and leaving. The rain outside grew heavier. I listened to the sound of her footsteps fading away, and my whole body began to tremble. Even though I was wrapped in thick blankets and wearing warm clothes, I still felt so cold. When I took my temperature, it read 40 degrees Celsius. For the first time, I realized that when someone is utterly broken, their body can collapse in an instant. I was dizzy, and my first thought was still of Elizabeth. I sent her a picture of the thermometer. "The rain is too heavy. It's hard to get a ride, and I'm guessing you haven't gone far yet. Could you take me to the hospital?" This time, Elizabeth replied quickly. But her response was, "Stop being dramatic, David. We can talk when I get back." My teeth chattered as I replied, "Elizabeth, I'm not being dramatic. I really have a fever. Please, you must come back." But this message floated away like a leaf in the ocean, with no response. I tried to order a car through an app, but as expected, none were available. My own car was in the shop for maintenance. Honestly, even if my car were in the garage right now, how could I risk driving in this condition? I called Alex. Alex stayed with me at the hospital. Should I call Elizabeth? After all, you are still her boyfriend. My lips were pale, and I silently shook my head. But David, are you really planning to break up? 9 years. If it weren't for you, Elizabeth wouldn't have what she has today. Now she's richer, more powerful, and just leaves you behind? Why? Alex gritted his teeth. At least you should get someone to teach her a lesson. It's only fair. I waved my hand and smiled bitterly. How do you wake someone who is pretending to be asleep? The answer is, you can't. I didn't want to drag this out any longer. That's not who I am, David. My heart was shattered into pieces. I had no strength left. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Elizabeth didn't call or send a single message. It was I who texted her, "Elizabeth, we need to talk. David, I've been really busy these days. Marco isn't doing well and needs company." I saw Alex's social media posts, and knowing he's taking care of you makes me feel reassured. Just wait a few more days, okay? Let me finish my work. Wait. There's that word again. When we had been together for 4 years, I had already discussed marriage with Elizabeth. My parents were urging us, and I, because I loved her, wanted to settle down quickly. What had Elizabeth said back then? "David, my career is still unstable. Could you wait a little longer? I don't want to hold you back." At that time, I was already in upper management, while Elizabeth had just been promoted to a junior supervisor. I understood the desire of a woman wanting to become strong in front of her man. So I waited another 2 years. In our 6th year together, I brought up marriage again. This time, what did Elizabeth say? "David, I've just broken into upper management. My position isn't secure yet. If we marry now, people might use it as an excuse to say my family life is affecting my career. I remember feeling upset. But I loved Elizabeth. Love made me give in once again. Later, I found out that Elizabeth made me wait because Marco had made her wait. He told her to wait 10 years. And Elizabeth, for that 10-year promise, made me wait for 9 years. If it hadn't been for her forgetting to block me from that post, without a doubt, Elizabeth would have made me wait the full 10 years. If Marco was willing to fulfill that 10-year dream, she would have tossed me aside. If Marco wasn't, maybe she would have settled for marrying me. No one knew that this whole relationship had been nothing but a charade. But it no longer mattered. Back at home, I looked at the place where we had lived for 9 years. It was full of memories of Elizabeth and me. I started in our bedroom. I began sorting through the clothes that had been with me for so long. The white clothes, I hung them up one by one. The black and gray ones, I took them out, folded them neatly, and placed them in my suitcase. When I finished, I looked at the wardrobe. The left half was filled with Elizabeth's dark clothes, and the right half was her beloved white clothes. I could almost see Elizabeth standing on the left and Marco standing on the right. This strange vision, I think Elizabeth must have seen it many times too. She had surely imagined living such a life, one half her and the other half Marco. But how unfortunate, these past 9 years, I had been occupying that other half. Elizabeth must have thought about that many, many times. I moved on to the study. I love reading more than Elizabeth because, aside from being a corporate executive, I'm also a writer. So most of the books in the study were mine. I ended up packing over a dozen large boxes. When the moving company Alex had called came to take my books, the study looked like it had been robbed. Only a few love stories that I never liked were left behind. I picked one up and opened it. There were words on the title page. A gift from Marco. Oh, so that's how it was. Because Marco gave it to her, Elizabeth must have leafed through it countless times. The worn pages made it easy to imagine Elizabeth running her fingers over them as if she were caressing Marco's body. I laughed at myself and carefully placed those few books back on the shelf. There was no trace of me left on the entire wall. Only Marco remained. Isn't that exactly what Elizabeth wanted? Then I went to the kitchen. As I entered the kitchen, I thought about Elizabeth's love for me. I remembered when the pandemic hit and I said I'd isolate myself elsewhere. Elizabeth stopped me. David, we're partners. It's my responsibility to take care of you. She made me lie down, boiled water, and cooked for me. In the middle of the night, when I groggily mumbled, "I'm so thirsty," Elizabeth would quickly hand me water. "Drink, David. Drink the water and you'll feel better." During the pandemic, she never let me go out to stock up on supplies. She'd say, "David, it's dangerous out there. I'll go. I'm stronger anyway." I stood in the middle of the kitchen, thinking about it over and over. Alex said I looked calm. But he didn't understand that a man's calmness comes from a heart that has died. When the heart dies, there are no more tears to cry. Elizabeth, do you understand? I sat there motionless until evening. I watched as the sun set outside the window and then the moon rose in its place. And then I understood, the person I had been waiting for wasn't coming back. Her 9 years of longing were far greater than the 9 years she had spent settling for me. Goodbye, Elizabeth. I stood up, dragging my suitcase. As I passed the side table, I saw a photo of Elizabeth and me. There was no trace left of us in this house. I'd leave the photo for her. Whether she tore it up or threw it away, I didn't care. I accepted an offer from a company in the U.S. and resigned from my old job back home. As the plane took off, I got a call from HR at my former company. "Mr. Liu, I think it's important to let you know. Ms. Liu from the Dakin Group called to ask if you were on a business trip. I'm guessing you haven't told her about your resignation, so I thought I'd check with you." I thanked him and said, "Just tell her I'm on a business trip. Don't say anything else." After hanging up, I looked at my phone. Messages from Elizabeth started flooding in. "David, why aren't you answering? Did you get discharged from the hospital? What's going on? Why aren't you telling me? You're not still mad, are you? I told you he's just a friend. Once this blows over, everything will be fine. After all, He just went through a breakup and we're old classmates. David, you're a senior executive at a public company. Don't be so petty, okay? Oh, I just spoke to your company. Shaoli said you're on a business trip, so I assume you're better now. That makes me feel much better. Have a good trip, and we'll talk when you get back. Love you. Reading those messages felt like they were from another lifetime. More precisely, it felt like they had been sent to the wrong person, as if Elizabeth had chosen the wrong recipient. So I deleted them all at once. Then I turned off my phone and boarded the plane. After landing, I tossed my old phone into a drawer and started using the new one the company had given me. I was busy house hunting and getting familiar with the new team, so busy my feet barely touched the ground. The company in the U.S. had approached me some time ago, offering a salary 3 times what I had been earning back home. I turned it down then, thinking life abroad would be too difficult. I never expected them to keep pursuing me. Now that I was here, it felt like the perfect fit. For a brief moment, I even felt a sense of relief that Elizabeth had chosen her childhood sweetheart over me. In just 3 days, I had settled into my new routine. Only then did I finally have a chance to breathe and pull my old phone out of the drawer. There were many photos on it that I couldn't bring myself to delete. I planned to remove all the ones of Elizabeth. But my own selfies, I wasn't willing to part with a single one. The moment I turned it on, thousands of messages from Elizabeth poured in, nearly crashing the phone. David, what's the meaning of this? What happened to the books in the study? And what about the clothes in the closet? Weren't you just on a business trip? Answer me. David, there's really nothing between Marco and me. I admit we were together in the past, but that's history now. My heart belongs to you. David, when are you coming back? Just give me a sign, even if it's just one word, so I know you're still there, okay? Please stop being mad. I'm begging you. I tightened my grip on the phone. My parents came over and patted my shoulder. When I moved to the U.S., the company had agreed to help them obtain a family reunification visa, so they came with me. Other than them, the only person who knew where I had gone was Alex. But he had already blocked and deleted all of Elizabeth's contact information and moved to Scandinavia for work. As for me, I hadn't deleted Elizabeth's messages simply because I'd been too busy after landing. But it didn't matter anymore. I removed the SIM card. As I was about to delete WeChat, my finger slipped and opened another app instead. To my surprise, it was the security camera system from the house Elizabeth and I had once shared. My parents had gone out for a walk, leaving me alone on the couch. It was a rare moment of rest, so I grabbed a large bag of chips, opened it, and started watching the footage. The first video was from 3 days ago. I paused for a second. That was the day I had landed in the U.S. The same day Elizabeth had called my former company, and I had asked HR to tell her I was on a business trip. Seeing that house again on the screen felt like looking at something from another lifetime. For a moment, I even questioned whether it had truly been the home I shared with a woman for 9 years. There was no trace of me left in that place except for the photo of Elizabeth and me that I had left on the side table. Soon, the quiet house was broken by the sound of the door's passcode being entered. The face that appeared was all too familiar. Elizabeth. She looked stunning in her dress, like the glowing female lead in a drama. I stuffed a handful of chips into my mouth. So good. Chips are essential when watching a show. Then another figure walked in, a white shirt, the same hairstyle as mine. Marco. I took a sip of cola. He was probably the new man of the house now, right? He really was handsome. When Elizabeth bought that house, the man she had imagined living there with her had undoubtedly been Marco. I studied him closely. There was a fragility in his eyes that even stirred a protective instinct in me, as another man. Unlike me, I always handled things swiftly and decisively. People often said my gaze was sharp enough to defeat 1,000 enemies in the business world. What a joke. How else could I have become the youngest regional executive manager? I shoved another handful of chips into my mouth. Tomato flavor. My favorite. Under the bright lights, Elizabeth led Marco into the living room. David's on a business trip for a few days. I told him you're having a rough time after your breakup and needed company. Stay here for a few days. He'll understand. She sat him down on the couch and poured him a glass of water. He didn't take it. Instead, His arm slid around her neck. I always thought all these years you were just using him as a stand-in for me. I stopped chewing for a second. Marco, that's in the past. The person I love now is David. She took out some pills. Take your medicine and go to bed. But Marco pulled her onto his lap. You're doing this on purpose to provoke me, aren't you? You expect me to believe you haven't thought about me all these years? Otherwise, why would you choose a man who looks exactly like me? Marco, Elizabeth's voice was hoarse. Don't do this. I had to admit, installing that security system had been a great decision. The audio was crystal clear. Don't do what, Elizabeth? I like you. And I know you like me too. Otherwise, why would you have chosen him? Marco began taking off his shirt, revealing his well-built body under the lights. Elizabeth's breathing grew heavier. This live drama was far more entertaining than anything on television. I glanced at the door to make sure my parents hadn't returned. Still out. Turns out when women play coy, it rarely lasts more than 3 seconds. They spun around the room in a frenzy. I thought they would head to the bedroom, but instead they stumbled into the study. Just as Marco was about to lay Elizabeth down on the desk, she suddenly froze. His hands were still on her, but she abruptly pushed him away. She walked back through the living room and into the bedroom, flinging open the wardrobe doors. The built-in wardrobe, half of it was empty. She reached inside and pulled out a piece of clothing. White. She threw it onto the bed. Then another one. White again. One after another, every piece was white. Elizabeth looked like she had seen a ghost, yet she kept pulling clothes from the wardrobe. Finally, she threw them all onto the bed. David, what have you done? In the footage, her voice was frantic, her face flushed. She stormed into the living room, ignoring Marco calling after her. Elizabeth, what's wrong? But she only cared about grabbing her phone from the coffee table. Her first message was a voice recording. David, what's the meaning of this? What happened to the books in the study? And what about the clothes in the closet? You said you were just on a business trip. Answer me. Realizing a voice message wasn't appropriate, she started typing instead. I remembered seeing those messages earlier. She must have sent them at that exact moment. I stood up and grabbed another bag of chips. When you're watching a show, chips are the ultimate snack. No competition. I opened the bag and continued watching. David, there's really nothing between Marco and me. I admit we were together in the past, but that's history now. My heart belongs to you. Marco finally couldn't stay quiet. Are you sure we're just history? If we're in the past, why did you come pick me up the moment I returned? Why did you post, "Time flies, it's already the 9th year"? When someone asked if you still couldn't forget me, you replied with, "Yes." Elizabeth, look at your own words. Which part of them is true? She slumped onto the sofa as if she hadn't heard him. I watched her try to call me. The number you have dialed is currently switched off. Marco walked behind her and reached out gently to comfort her. She responded coldly, "You should leave. I'll call a car to take you back to your hotel." Elizabeth, do you even know what time it is? You're kicking me out at 2 in the morning. She pushed his hand away and stood up. The car is on its way. You have plenty of classmates here. Go stay with one of them. Don't you understand? I'm emotionally unstable after my breakup. I trust you the most. I didn't just come back to visit family. I wanted to start over with you. When you posted that photo of David, I knew you hadn't forgotten me. You need to realize your true feelings. We shouldn't keep missing each other. Marco. She seemed to deflate like a balloon losing air. Please go. I can't lose David. He looks like you, but he's not you, and you're not him. His eyes don't have your fragility. They're full of determination. I've grown tired of your weakness and fragility. I don't want to lose David. Marco hesitated, but seeing the coldness on her face, he finally dragged his suitcase out. Elizabeth closed the door behind him. After looking around the room, she sat on the sofa, holding the last thing I had left in that house, our photo, and stayed there the entire night. Watching her sit there alone, I opened another bottle of cola. No matter what show you're watching, besides chips, You always need something to drink. Unfortunately, I didn't have popcorn in my villa. So I opened another bag of chips. The show wasn't over yet. Elizabeth sat on that sofa all night, only getting up when her secretary called in the morning. That evening, she returned home without even changing her clothes and sat down on the sofa again. Out of habit, she sent me another voice message. I went to your company today. I told them if they didn't tell me where you were, I'd pull out of all our business deals. That's when I found out you didn't just go on a business trip, you resigned. No matter how much I asked, they wouldn't tell me where you went. David, I'm guessing you went away to clear your head. When are you coming back? Can you send me a message? Even just one word, so I know you're still out there? Please don't be mad anymore. I'm begging you. I'm really worried about you. When you said you had a fever, I should have taken you to the hospital. That was my fault. But Marco told me he was heartbroken and didn't know who else to turn to, so I went to take care of him. I was only with him because I knew you'd be okay. Can you forgive me? I stopped chewing for a moment. Whether I forgave her didn't matter. What echoed in my mind was one question. Elizabeth, do you even deserve it? She continued sitting there, staring at her phone. Every time it buzzed, she checked it. Most of the messages were work-related. Many were from Marco. She looked irritated, placed the phone face down on the table, and walked into the kitchen. After standing there for a while, she seemed to realize she was hungry and opened the fridge. The moment she opened it, her expression changed. Carefully, she took out what she found inside. It was a sea blue cake, topped with whipped cream shaped like white waves. The cake was no longer fresh. But she remembered clearly the important promise she had made with David. For that promise, they had even drawn a design together, a sketch she had framed and placed in her office. She often imagined having a child with David, one with the same determined gaze, decisive and efficient. But then she thought about Marco, who looked exactly like David. The first time she saw David, she had almost burst into tears. She and her childhood sweetheart Marco had once made a 10-year promise. If Marco hadn't married by then, she would marry him. But Marco had gone abroad, and they had lost contact. Elizabeth had spent countless nights missing Marco, but it was David who carried her through them. She made David wear the white shirts Marco loved and asked him to cut his hair the way Marco preferred. Back then, David had looked so much like Marco. But as time passed, Elizabeth realized more and more that David was simply David. He was nothing like Marco, who was fragile and easily broken, someone who gave up quickly and left everything behind to go abroad. By the time the pandemic arrived, Elizabeth no longer cared whether David wore white shirts or styled his hair a certain way. In those years, David let his hair grow long and walked around the house in his black bear pajamas. She began to see that beneath David's determination was a quiet, unique dependence on her. From that moment on, she started yearning for a child with him. She wanted to build a family and step into the next stage of life by his side. On their 9th anniversary, she had planned to propose to him. But then Marco called. He said he had just gone through a breakup and didn't want to live anymore. Elizabeth, maybe you can still save me. She hadn't wanted to tell David that Marco was her ex, afraid it would hurt him. But she also didn't want Marco to actually die. So she lied, saying she was busy with work, and postponed her proposal. During those days at the hotel, Elizabeth booked a double room and slept in the bed beside Marco. In the middle of the night, Marco would wake up saying he wanted to die. She couldn't bring herself to leave him alone. Eventually, though, she realized that avoiding David wasn't a solution. So she decided to bring Marco home. If David could see everything happening under his own roof, maybe he wouldn't be so angry. What Elizabeth never expected was that by the time she returned, David had already left. She felt it instantly. This wasn't just a temporary separation. It was something permanent. Something final. She panicked. She admitted to herself that when facing Marco's advances, she had nearly made a terrible mistake. But standing in the empty study, staring at the half-empty wardrobe, she realized she was about to lose the most important part of her life. 9 years of love. 9 years carved into her timeline. She knew their love hadn't started pure, but over time it had been polished into something brilliant, like a gemstone. She pushed Marco away, feeling herself sinking into an endless abyss. She sent David countless voice messages, texts, and made call after call. He hadn't blocked her anywhere. And that was even scarier than being blocked. It meant he simply didn't care anymore. He didn't care if she was with Marco. He didn't care if she knelt and begged him to stay. He didn't care if she remembered him at all. He had given up. Elizabeth couldn't understand it. Night after night, she sat alone in the house, watching the sky turn from dark to light and back to dark again. Somewhere between dawn and dusk, she kept asking herself how a few days with Marco could make David give up on her so completely. And now she was hungry. She hadn't eaten or slept in days. Her stomach twisted in protest, reminding her that she needed something or she might collapse. She didn't want to die. Not yet. She still desperately wanted to say something to David. Even if all he said in return was a single word. Even if it was just, "Go away." She would accept that as hope. She opened the fridge. There it was, the sea blue cake. "If we ever have a child, the moment we find out, we'll make a cake together, okay? Elizabeth, how about a sea blue cake?" David had been so creative. He quickly sketched a design on a small 7-inch card. "Perfect," he had said, adding the final strokes. "Our child should be like the ocean, born free, living wide, with endless possibilities." That night, they had stayed up until dawn, sharing the hope of a new life. It had been the same night she planned to propose. But now, without her knowing, that sea blue cake, the symbol of their unborn child, had appeared in the fridge. As Elizabeth took it out, her entire body trembled. She sent another message. "David, you don't know how much I wanted to have a child with you. Please, let's get married and do everything we promised each other. Please, please, David. Even if you just tell me to go away, I'll feel better than I do right now." She sent message after message. All of them disappeared into silence. Elizabeth understood David's personality. Making this cake was his way of closing the chapter on their dream of having a child together. She remembered the rainy night when David, burning with fever, had asked her to take him to the hospital. She remembered the afternoon he had texted her, asking to talk. Suddenly, Elizabeth slapped herself hard. Twice. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. She wiped it away. It didn't hurt. But then she felt feverish, her teeth chattering uncontrollably. She stared at the sea blue cake. She didn't see freedom. She didn't see the vast ocean. She saw herself as an executioner, someone who had killed the child she and David had longed for. The woman once known as President Zhang now sat at the dining table like a frail old woman. She stared blankly at the cake, motionless, like a piece of withered wood. Then she noticed a note beneath it. Slowly, she pulled it out. In David's steady, familiar handwriting, it read, "No matter what happens, Elizabeth, when you see this cake, please light a candle for the child we never had." Her eyes burned. She tried wiping her tears, but the more she wiped, the more they fell, streaming through her fingers. She clenched her teeth, trying to suppress her sobs. But she couldn't hold it in anymore. She cried out loud. Her sobs echoed in the empty room. The man named David would never hold her again. When her career had been in ruins, it was David who held her through those painful nights. Later, he supported her rise, helping her soar higher. On the nights she cried with joy over her success, he was the one who embraced her first and called her the most perfect woman in the world. She had been so happy knowing she was perfect in David's eyes. And now she had destroyed everything. She cried until she had no strength left. The cake on the table seemed to mock her, reminding her of her foolishness and hypocrisy. She found a lighter and lit a candle, placing it on the cake. When the flame finally burned out, Elizabeth grabbed handfuls of the cake and shoved them into her mouth. It was stale. The cream tasted like wax. It was revolting. Still, she forced it down. When she finished, her stomach churned violently, and she vomited everything back up. Then a warm sensation rose in her throat, and she collapsed. David had turned off the video the moment he saw Elizabeth lose control and eat the cake. After watching her light a candle for the child they never had, whatever faint interest he still had in her vanished. Her tears, the blood at the corner of her mouth, the swelling on her face from her own slaps, he felt she was getting exactly what she deserved. He closed the video, turned off his phone, and tossed it back into the drawer. Then he went to the master bedroom to take a nap. He didn't believe for a second that a woman like Elizabeth would truly take responsibility for her actions. She was young, rich, and stunning. After a few days of madness, she would recover. A few more nights of drinking, and she would likely start bringing different men home. Maybe she would find another substitute romance. Maybe another man who looked like him. The thought didn't surprise him. With that, David drifted off to sleep. When he woke up, he returned to writing. The new environment inspired him. As his fingers moved across the keyboard, words flowed like a fountain. He entered a powerful state of flow, completely immersed in his work. Meanwhile, Elizabeth lay in a hospital bed. Even she couldn't believe she had vomited blood from heartbreak alone. It turned out that overwhelming emotional pain could make a body physically collapse. She thought of David again. If she reached out sincerely, would he soften? Could they reconcile? Was this all some cruel test from him? Clinging to that hope, she became obsessed with finding him after she was discharged. But David's parents had blocked her everywhere. Their house was empty. None of the neighbors knew where the Liu family had gone. Alex, the only person who might have known, had already left for Scandinavia and deleted all contact with David. Her last hope was David's former company. But no matter how much she pressed them, they only said Mr. Liu had resigned to take a break. Because of her repeated visits, shareholders believed she was damaging the company's image. She was removed from her position as Greater China Executive Director. Her reputation and income plummeted. The connections that once surrounded her vanished overnight. She didn't care. She paid large sums to detective agencies, asking them to find David. They all returned with the same answer: he wasn't in the country. So where was he? Elizabeth seemed to lose her mind. Every day she either searched for clues or drowned herself in alcohol. Marco visited her daily. He even suggested, "If you once chose David because he looked like me, why can't you treat me like him now?" Disgusting, she spat. But deep down, she knew the most disgusting person was herself. Eventually, she sold the house she had shared with David and moved into a small apartment. She couldn't bear the reminders of where she had destroyed everything: her David, the man she had planned to propose to, and the child they had dreamed of. Years passed. One day, she heard a rumor that David was in the United States. She didn't believe it at first. David had always said, "As long as my parents are alive, I won't travel far." But when she saw a book written by him, she finally understood. David had entered a highly confidential industry. He had cut ties with social platforms as part of a corporate agreement. If not for his book being published in the U.S., she might never have found a trace of him. 10 full years had passed since she lost him. Finally, she saw him again. On the pages of his book. His eyes looked more determined, more captivating than ever. Emotion flooded her chest. She showered carefully, went to a salon, and restored herself. Though she had entered looking disheveled, she emerged once again looking like the beautiful, wealthy woman she had once been. She didn't understand why, after David left, her heart had clung only to him. Her single obsession became seeing him one more time. To tell him she still loved him. To confess her mistakes. On the flight to the U.S., she reread his book, focusing on one detail: David was still unmarried. Maybe he had been waiting for her. Full of hope, she rented a car and drove to his residence. She knocked. An American woman opened the door. When Elizabeth asked about David, the woman replied, "Today is David's wedding day. It's at church number 3. I'm just here to grab the rings. He was so nervous he forgot them. If you're having trouble finding it, you can come with me." They crossed the green lawn together. More people emerged from nearby villas. "They're all going to David's wedding," the woman smiled. Elizabeth felt her body sway as she walked. At the church entrance, she stopped. "You look even more nervous than the groom," the woman said warmly. "You must be a friend of David's, right? You should congratulate him. He and the bride have been together for 9 years. In Chinese culture, doesn't the number 9 symbolize something lasting?" The woman pushed open the church doors, but Elizabeth stayed where she was, standing outside. From David's perspective, he first saw his friends. Then, near the entrance of the church, he noticed a vaguely familiar figure. He didn't dwell on it. He moved through the crowd to retrieve the rings his friend had brought. Once he had them in hand, his focus immediately returned to his bride. Min, a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, was not only extraordinarily talented but also breathtakingly beautiful. The smile David gave her was filled with pure happiness. This was the woman who had waited for him for 9 years. All because he had insisted they marry in the year The Chaos was published. And Min had agreed. "It's so romantic," she had said. 9 symbolizes eternity. Honey, Chinese culture is truly profound. When David took the rings and prepared to step onto the stage, he finally recognized the figure standing at the church entrance. It was Elizabeth. He assumed she must be a tourist who had accidentally wandered into his wedding. She was from the same country, so he instinctively offered her a polite smile. Then he turned back to the ceremony. Elizabeth did not witness the dramatic reunion she had imagined. No tearful embrace, no reconciliation. Instead, David's polite smile pierced her heart. This entire journey had been for him. Every strand of hair she had trimmed. Every inch of skin she had carefully tended to in the shower. Every second spent anxiously choosing her outfit. Every turbulent emotion she endured on the flight. All of it had revolved around David. What she hadn't expected was that David had started a new relationship the very year they separated. There were no lingering feelings. No clinging to the dream of the child they once imagined. To him, Elizabeth was simply someone from his past. And David, just like the determined gaze in his eyes, had moved forward without ever looking back. As the wedding march began to play, Elizabeth stood still, watching David and the stunning woman beside him exchange their vows. The priest asked, "Do you, the groom, take the bride to be your wife?" "I do." "No matter if she is rich or poor, in health or in sickness, do you vow to stay with her forever?" "I do." The priest turned to the bride. "Do you, the bride, take the groom to be your husband?" "I do." "No matter if he is rich or poor, in health or in sickness, do you vow to stay with him forever?" "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the Holy Spirit, the Father and the Son, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." As the couple kissed, no one noticed Elizabeth quietly leaving the church. In her expensive high heels, she walked aimlessly, despair weighing down every step, until she reached the blue ocean. White waves crashed against the shore, echoing the memories she had stubbornly held onto. She took off her shoes and placed them neatly aside. Then she stepped into the water, slowly, one step at a time. "David, maybe in another world, we'll have a chance to meet again. We'll marry, have children, and grow old together. I know everything that happened is my own karma. But I still won't wish you happiness. Because my love ended with you." 3 days later, in a place called Massachusetts, a body was found washed ashore. The newlywed David knew nothing about it. The ocean had carried her far away from him. And more importantly, he was immersed in his new life, filled with happiness. The past had long faded from his world. He cherished the present. Because only the present is eternal.